Hey again, y'all. Chris Reitner here from Chris Reitner Represents Colorado and the GrassRoutes76 podcast. Reaching out to you, CD1 Assembly delegates, to try and gain your support and hopefully, maybe find a delegate willing to nominate me tonight at the Assembly because I have been having problems campaigning. I would love it if y'all could listen to this, and I will only send you this one time in your email. I'm trying to get it out early, so maybe you can listen to it a little bit today before the Assembly and see if you would support me in the vote tonight. So, in the last couple speeches at caucus, I told you about how I was a recovering alcoholic and about how I had worked in public service realm for the last 30 years. The first 15 years of my adult life spent in the service industry, mainly in restaurants. And the last 10 years, I have been working in federal agencies as a public service servant there. I reached out to a couple of delegates this last weekend to try and gain feedback on my campaign and what I could do to raise any support for the Assembly tonight. Several people that I spoke with said that they would like to see more content on my website, so I'm trying to provide some content on here and tonight at the Assembly. While speaking with one of the delegates, they asked what kind of scientist I was because I am a working scientist. I'm technically an associate scientist at UCAR in a department called the University Community Programs in a subdepartment called the Cooperative Programs for the Advancement of Earth System Science. And the opinions in my campaign and in this podcast are mine and mine alone and do not represent any of my coworkers or my employer at UCAR, UCP, or CPAS. Specifically, I'm a geographer with certified training in GIS and GIS data science, which is geographic information systems that consist of everything from cartography to computer mapping to remote sensing, which is just observing Earth from airborne-based plane, satellite, any kind of remote sensor. I'm a geographer, which contains the underpinnings of ecology, environmental science, and earth system science. So more broadly, I am an ecologist with multidisciplinary training who can work at physical, social, and geospatial sciences. GIS is the main method or tool I use for my work. But like I said, I'm trained in multidisciplinary. And so during this campaign, I consider myself to be a political ecologist, which basically means I want to study the political environment and the laws that are shaping the space that I live in and the systems involved in that ecology. If I was to be elected to office, I would resign from my current position, but I would still consider myself to be a working scientist in an elected official public servant capacity. And more broadly, in that capacity, I would consider myself to be an honest broker scientist, which basically just lays out the most feasible optional paths and possible outcomes for each path. So citizens can be well informed to avoid any short-sighted decisions that could turn negative for future generations. And so as far as content goes in my campaign, a lot of the content in my campaign is based on the same issues as the incumbent. And I think that we both agree that the biggest priorities for the country match the Colorado Democratic platform. I want to personally thank Representative DeGette for all she has done for addressing those issues, especially the work on energy and climate change. I know she has an excellent voter record with the League of Conservation Voters, and I am super grateful for that. I thought it was so cool when she went to the last COP convention and ran into CSU, and that article was awesome. I think that all these, so many of the issues on the platform can be addressed by redirecting or ending U.S. federal subsidies from three major industries, which are big fossil fuels, big oil, big energy, and big agriculture. Some of these subsidy policies have been in place for 100 years old, and they've just been taken advantage of, and now they're getting funneled to corporations who, like big ag, big corporations that are making bad food. They cheapen everything with processed ingredients, salt, sodium, sugar, added sugar. And basically, it's fascist telling us that we have to eat it because it's the cheapest. So I think that ending or directing U.S. government subsidies to big fossil fuels, big energy, and big agriculture. I think a lot of these, like I said, a lot of these policies have been in place for too long, and corporations are taking advantage of it. And then the worst ones are conglomerate monopolies, basically, that set their own prices in the market. It's not a free market, and then they price gouge us at the end in, when we pay for gas or energy or food. So I think that taking just these actions are of redirection subsidies would have dramatic cascading rippling effects, from easing the tax burden of the citizen collective to accelerating the mitigation of climate change and global warming, to giving citizens a more level playing field against things like Citizens United. I know the current and past administrations and Congresses have tried to get rid of a lot of subsidies, especially to fossil fuels, and I applaud that, and I'm grateful for it. I think that, the EPA says that 3 of the 5 biggest greenhouse gas emitting industries are the energy, transportation, and agriculture sectors, but all 5 are contributing mainly by burning fossil fuels. Representative DeGette and the current administration are making great progress, I think, in transitioning most of these sectors away from fossil fuels. And I want to thank Representative DeGette personally for repeatedly calling out big oil fossil fuel companies for receiving record-breaking revenues while collecting enormous subsidies and then raising consumer prices. Out of those 5 sectors, though, I think the one that needs addressed and most urgently by the U.S. is the agricultural sector. And a difference in my campaign is that I am focusing on updating our country's food system to break our reliance on the greedy corporations selling us unhealthy food in the name of cheapness. Any bad subsidies to big ag would have tremendous effects that cascade to transform the entire food system for the citizen collective self-betterment. And the latest IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, said there's a significant mitigation and adaptation potential by updating the food systems to sustainable practices. That's coming from Relief Web, and these citations will be up on my website and linked to the podcast. So I think the best way to start reforming the food system is to redirect government subsidies away from the big ag corporations. I know a lot of these subsidies come from the Farm Bill, which I know has been in the works for a while and is still being debated with appropriations and stuff. I'm not exactly sure what is going on with it right now, but I think that a lot of the subsidies need to stop going to the big ag partnerships, in quotes, that are hiding behind 100 years of tax code rewrites, and even some congressional members taking subsidies while they're writing the laws to help create them. That's coming from the Environmental Working Group and from Politico. And so, transforming the food system. We need to break and rebuild the food system in this country, and we need to do it around communities, local communities, thinking kind of locally, thinking locally, but for our country's collective and the planet's collective. Everybody needs food, including immigrants and shelterless people. I was out not too long ago, driving around up around the park, Commerce City, and I needed to stop at a convenience store. And I went in, and there was a shelterless person asked me for some cash. I don't have any cash. I don't carry cash usually. But I went in and I got some pistachios, and I got an extra bag for them, and I gave it to them, and they were super excited. I was riding around with one of my supporters the other day. We were playing disc golf, and we came across somebody, and my friend was telling me that he got like a box of little bags of like the goldfish that he's been handing out to shelterless people, and nobody's turned down that. And so everybody needs food. Um, and so I think that one of the ways that we could use the food, transforming the food industry, is by helping immigrants and shelterless people. We could start growing community foods and maybe some shelters to grow food for the communities by the communities. I'm thinking like downtown Denver, or the rural space or the urban spaces in Denver. I think there's a lot of empty office space right now that could probably be used for indoor agriculture, and maybe even for housing. So I think that like we could start transforming the food around the community, maybe getting like granges and meeting places in the cities, where all of us communities and neighbors can come together and share some food that we help design, cultivate, and talk, and have kitchen table discussions, which is, I think, a great way to interact and bond with community members and neighbors. Um, we can also, do it in rural communities where there's corporate locked farmland that should be available uh, for community members to use to grow. It doesn't take that much to grow if you do it efficiently. I think that transforming communities around food, or transforming food around communities, is a win-win for everyone, including community members. Push for food security and food sovereignty, which is how what I think is how food is made, what it's made of, who makes it, and where it's made. And food sovereignty is me being able to have that choice of all of those. Um, I think that a lot of this stuff could be paid for by eliminating the bad subsidies to the big agriculture companies, partnerships, and corporate monopolies. I think that Colorado and Denver are even still shining examples of transforming food systems with all the community gardens that Denver has. There's so many community garden organizations, school garden organizations. I volunteered for a school garden organization a couple years ago that went around and was installing and designing school gardens for elementary schools, which are awesome. Down in I know in rural communities, there's food hubs where they get together with local agricultural producers, and they go around. They have a truck that goes around certain stops to pick up food, take it to local restaurants, and people are eating locally and being independent of the corporate conglomerate food system. So I think that's kind of a reactionary way to help a lot of the issues on the party platform. I think that it's reactionary because that's what we're. I think that's a way that we can help shelterless and immigrant populations, but they're already shelterless and immigrants. And so I think another way that we should start trying to focus is uh, proactionary or preactionary. And I think the way to do that is we need to start focusing on reducing the U.S.'s per capita, in quotes, GHG production, greenhouse gas productions. The per capita, I think, is a hidden little secret of our country that doesn't get talked about too much. Currently, our per capita GHG production, depending on where you look, is between the worst out of the world and like the 11th worst out of the world on Wikipedia or the World Economic Forum. But our per capita GHG production, I think, is masked to look like selfish individual consumerism, but it's actually driven by the greedy corporations that I've been talking about, taking our government subsidies, who create basically a fascist algorithm of global consumerism. Like if you look at the Asian country total GHG emissions, they're actually higher because of our per capita GHG emissions. Things like going into making clothes over in Asian factories that get shipped back over to Americans to buy. That is our per capita GHG emissions. But like I said, I think that is really not to blame on the individual. I think corporations are blamed for that, for creating the cycle of endless consumerism of cheap products, fast products, and environmentally wasteful products. So I think that our GHG emissions, I think, are actually creating climate refugees and climate immigrants. And so I think that the proactive way to help immigrants and even shelterlessness is to reduce our personal GHG emissions. And so we're not creating more. So our selfish consumerism isn't the action that's creating more immigrants and refugees to our country. So just another idea that I've had, I think that like climate change and global warming in this country should be classified as like a national security threat and something to be put under the umbrella of the Department of Defense. And those resources can be used to fight climate change and especially wildfires. I think wildfires need to be put in the Department of Defense and taken out of really control of the Forest Service, because the Forest Service do not have enough resources to manage wildfires and the rest of the forest. And I don't have any references on that. It's just observations I noticed from working for 3 summers in the Forest Service and what I've noticed from working with fire weather in my current position. I also think that maybe the Forest Service should be moved to the Department of the Interior, so it can be really classified as not an extractive agency, but not necessarily preservation agency either. I think it just needs more resources from the DOI instead of the Department of Agriculture. Like I said, I don't have any references for these. It's just my observations for working for the Forest Service and fire weather in my current position. So that's going to be it on this video. I hope that it helped explain a little bit. I'm going to make one more, and that will probably be the last of my podcast. But sorry it's so long.